All right, it's the middle of the night. I was not able to sleep very well, so I wanted to talk about how to move with purpose throughout your life. How do you actually make the decision that's best for you? That's the idea that we're going to talk about. How do you make the idea? How do you make the decision that's right for you? Um, and my version of this has been, asking yourself the question, what is the next best thing that will make my life amazing? And to pursue that all the way, you know, as hard as you can do it, whatever is available, that you go at it from an ethical, moral standpoint, do it the right way, but do it. And if that gives you a lot of excitement, then you're probably doing something that's good for like who you are, what your particular way of being is, the particular human that you are. There's a kind of a fascinating guy who has given the same message, more or less. His name is Bashar. He channels an alien entity, I guess, and basically he's just a life coach. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I won't really speak to like the authenticity or whatever, whatever my theories are about this guy. All I'll say is that he's a highly intelligent person who's giving a message in a way that some people might need to be hearing it to receive it. To think that this is some otherworldly knowledge. I mean, that's what basically Christians do anyway, right? But no, I think he's speaking truth, though. And I think there is a definite existence of truth in our world, and that you have certain ways that you can learn about it. And that it is truth that really pulls the scales off your eyes and lets you see the world for what it is. And it is a beautiful place. It's a scary place. It's hard to comprehend it. And, I think that we need to give up the idea of comprehension of this so much as well. That's kind of a side note. But I think the less you try to understand, the more you accept you cannot understand is probably better to say. Some people will seek, understanding relentlessly in ways where maybe you can't actually find it. You can't find it in certain spaces, I think. But yeah, where you probably can find understanding that matters is yourself within. Who you are, what you want to do, what motivates you and excites you the most, what are your options to get there, not what are the options of LeBron James if you want to play in the basketball league. What are your options to get to your future that you want? You have to understand what you can do and how you're going to get there. And I do think that you can overcome a whole lot if you really want it bad enough. We can just kind of leave that on the door. I'm not trying to say that only LeBron James could have, been LeBron James. There's plenty of great players. But, had a certain skill set which is going to make this future, I'd say, more attainable than less attainable for, if he was 2 inches shorter, I suppose, right? It's more attainable being 2 inches taller for someone trying to get into that field. It's just a reality. But it's really not the focus of this video. So anyway, to kind of go back to how Bashar thinks of this, he kind of adds in kind of a nice next step, which is exhaust it pursuing that thing that gives you the most excitement until you deplete it and you cannot, do it more. And then do that same question. In the military, you might call this an OODA loop, whatever the fuck it stands for. What is it? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point is mostly about observing your environment, seeing what is going on, making a decision, and putting that decision into practice. And then you just repeat. And you do that the entire way till you're back in a safe place, right? It's called the OODA loop. I'm really sorry for creating one of the O's, but it is what it is. I'm out of practice. But the point is, this is a key way to look at your life, is take the feedback and give a good reaction. Take the feedback and give a good reaction. Grow as a person, learn, change, and do. And I think that it's important to know that even when you went towards something, there's a key point that he makes that I've never made. And this is good advice. Again, I think that what he's saying is just good advice. Is do not try to be emotionally tied to what you expect the outcome to be. So if your goal is to, make a song or to release a video and hope that somebody will see it and have a conversation about it. Like, let's just say I've had that expectation, is I want to be able to have some sort of conversation about the ideas I'm having. I really want to talk to them, to somebody in great depth, because I want to make a friend. Ultimately, that's my real, what is the next thing that'll make my life amazing? I need to make some friends that are, you know, on the same wavelength as me, who live in a similar area as me, so that we can hang out in person. I think that's important to do. You know, I haven't had it for years, and I kind of want that for real. It might take some time to do that still, but I am moving towards it. You understand? That's one of the things that makes a big difference. No matter how small your steps are, because you could definitely say I'm moving slow. You know, absolutely would agree with you on it. But I'm just going at my pace. You know, it's been a long time, and I'm trying to figure it out. But just every single time I hit record, I get more and more kind of relaxed now that like it's kind of over, I guess. You know what I mean? Like anybody who could care, you know, for basically it proves that it's not a big deal, right? And then if eventually someone, you know, somebody who the reaction I'm actually worried about is like that getting a text from somebody who I used to know, and them like basically dogging on my ass. I would be like, oh yeah, I didn't want that. But you know what I mean? It's so unlikely that anybody would give a fuck though. Like seriously, they won't. And it's so kind of a relief, you know, to know how big the world is and how much is going on, that you're very unimportant in the grand scheme of things. Just ridiculously small. One other thing I've been looking at a lot is, I'm not going to do this at all, but I watched a really old video by Vsauce about ayahuasca and, you know, DMT, I guess, in general. And the idea of kind of not really doing the drug, but kind of what you experience. I already feel like I've kind of been through my version of this. And I'm cool with just once, I suppose, right? For now, I guess, right? What happens when you do DMT, more or less, is it kind of, it's a drug, it's a medicine. It's going to force your body to have a reaction that it otherwise wouldn't have, right? Basically what it does is it kind of decreases your brain's activity, and maybe through that process allows you to experience certain things that you never really could under the normal operation of your body. And a lot of things that people report, and kind of what he purported, but he kind of also resisted it and maybe didn't have strong enough of a dose, so that he was like he was not fully forced down the hole of ego death. And to explain what ego death or ego dissolution is, I just watched the video, so hopefully I can explain this well. You know, while I'm very much not versed on most of what I talk about ever, I did at least just watch this video. So I'll kind of explain it because he was very scientifically minded. But the ego dissolution is essentially when you understanding who you are in the room. And he had a nice diagram, and it makes sense. You know, so again, I'm Caleb, and you know, I'm in Caleb's room, Caleb's living room. That's Caleb's couch, and that's Caleb's TV. But really, if anybody came in this room, you know, 1,000 years from now, if the bombs drop tomorrow and they're going through this room, it's just stuff. And even if they see my corpse, it's just some guy. You know what I mean? It's not Caleb. I'm not a specific person. And in a way, I think that a lot of people who experience this drug have reported they feel like connected to the universe in a bigger way for having those thoughts and not a smaller way. It's kind of counterintuitive, but you kind of feel like, and I felt when I went through my, I suppose we'll call it psychedelic, you know, really too much drugs experience, and I don't want to do that much drugs again. What I kind of remember feeling was like very, very connected to the world. Like, you know, that even an existence like mine had value. Before I might not have really felt that way. You know, I would have felt that people who do horrible things are not worthwhile, and people who do nothing are not worthwhile. You know, only that small few who try and do well are worth a damn, you know, and maybe in a way we're all pursuing that. And that's why, you know, like religious texts like the Bible say, you know, the path is straight, you know, straight and narrow, and not many people will go down it. Well, I think it mostly means that most people won't experience any sort of great life here on earth, you know, because the world is kind of more fucked up in it. It's just not great all the time, right? We understand that. Not that it's hopeless or anything. I don't believe that at all. But I just think that we're all going to struggle in life. It's inevitable. You're all going to struggle, and you're all going to die. But mostly, it won't fucking matter. Like, it won't matter almost at all. So why do you care? It's so hard to break yourself free of that ego. And that's where, you know, people who have, you know, this is all, I think, still in research even to this day. But I think back then, they were talking about its potential effects to treat depression, to treat, many, many mental, psychological disorders. And that maybe the root of some of these mental disorders that we seem to be getting plagued with the more and more these days could be, this ego that's holding us back. We can be more egotistical than ever because we can be popular across the whole globe now. You might have been popular in a community. You might have had a nice family. Your kids might have liked you. Like, there's many ways you could have gotten some sort of social, standing that would make a person feel good, even superior, or even just good, I guess, about what's going on, who they're surrounded by. But I feel like now you can be loved by people you don't know for reasons that you don't understand, could never really know. Like, if I was in a relationship with somebody, I would feel like I know why they like me. It's because I'm making them laugh. They're here, they're in the presence of me, so I know that when I'm being a person that they like, when I'm being a person that they don't like. On the internet, if you start saying things online, you're going to be saying a shit ton of things. And, people might like or dislike you for any number of the reasons of things you've said. And, you don't think about every single thing that you say. And I think you should think before you speak, but generally, sometimes it's just hard to tell when someone's joking, when they're serious, when they're intentionally kind of missing the mark and seeing how many people pick up on it, or, whatever, right? It's so hard to know what my intentions were when I made the video, even as the guy making the video sometimes, like, what is my artistic intent? Not that I'm being artistic per se, but, people can really kind of miss the mark on intentionality and understanding it. And so people can go through struggles that, they didn't ask for. And people can do wrong as well, and go through struggles. But you can be wronged for sure, very strongly on this planet. And it's kind of unfortunate too. Okay, kind of get back on topic of the video. So I was kind of explaining the idea of how Bashar tells you to not be like emotionally invested because, well, he talks about it in this way of minds. You have like the mind that you think of, the mind that you have access to. It is when you think about, this steak is tasty, that ass is fat. That's your like regular you mind. But he has this idea that there's a higher mind that kind of is like observing you from the outside. Like the thing that you see if you were on DMT, you know what I mean? And you have this out of body experience and you see yourself in the way that you can never experience it. Again, whenever you look around the world, you see your torso and your legs and your hands, if you have them. And, you understand that you are the only perspective you will ever hold genuinely is those eyeballs of yours. And if you don't have that, then whatever your experience is, right? You only perceive life from within this shell until you're dead, I guess is the idea. But that there's a second mind, that's the soul, that's the real you, whatever you want to call it. This is the thing that kind of knows what your soul needs, and it's trying to guide you in some small way. And that Bashar believes, I suppose. And I think even if it's not fucking true at all, the idea, I think the idea of the higher mind is a little bit much, a little bit hard to swallow. But like, let's just say that it's true and just, again, like this is the idea of a higher power in the first place. I've kind of talked about the idea of self-belief comes first. Well, maybe I haven't, but self-belief is like got to be the root of who you are because that's what's going to make you happy. If you believe in yourself, if you're doing what excites you, pursuing the dream that you have, if it's really your real dream, you're going to be a happy person, I think. If you find success in the thing that you genuinely want, you're going to be happy most of the time, At least you're going to have some satisfaction in your life that maybe not everybody else can claim. Maybe somebody else can claim that they're happy for any number of reasons, I suppose. And you might think, well, there you go. Less is more. Maybe. I think it really just depends on the type of person you are. I've had this fascination with certain people who, I would say have made it. You could pretty much think of any rich and famous person. You could think like, why do they keep going? Again, I think it's because they're doing something different than what you're doing. They are pursuing this life more for the purpose of it, not the. I think a lot of us are chasing just money. That's what I chased because it unlocked time, and I wanted time, but what am I going to do with the time? That was a question I never had an answer for. And now I feel like I have the answer to that question. And I just realized that it was not this like first this, then this type. You could have just, you can just pursue your dream, you know, as long, I'm sure that there's a way that you can fund it to make it possible to try. And you'll probably be pretty impressed with the results, just in the way that you, if nothing else, in the way that you feel when you're doing it. And this is another thing that Bashar kind of, I think he just is much more eloquent than me. And I'll probably wrap this up pretty much now. Is like once you give in to the idea that one, you are not that important. Nope, not a single one of you. Not me, not anyone. We're not that important, and unless you're a very rare specimen, they're not going to remember your name in just 50 years, you know? And fucking, for me, probably 2 years, you know what I mean? Like whenever I go, you know what I mean? You're not going to be remembered. And even if you are, you'll be dead, so fucking who cares? You know what I mean? No matter how good or bad you remember. Now, I do think that, again, we should probably pursue, you know, a great life, because you will have more fun while doing it. I think that's all that matters, though. If you are fucking the most amazing person ever and everybody remembers your name for 10 millennia, that would be nice, but it wouldn't be as important to the human that lived that they had a good life. You know what I mean? No matter how much loved or hated they could be, I think that it's, you know, if you go and ask that pair of eyes, the higher mind, when you get to the place we're all going, you know, I think they'll just be like, well, I was doing what I wanted to do. And that's all that I wanted to do. I could have done that for free if somehow it wasn't paying in my version of the universe. But anyway, so yeah, I think pursue your passion to the most that you can do it, even if you don't really guess right the first time. You never probably will anyway. And the outcome that you'll get from trying something might not be what you expect anyway. And you should just roll with the punches. Basically, life's a giant game of improv. And you've just got to keep saying yes and. Now, draw your boundaries, people. Like, don't get me wrong, but you've got to just keep trying to get to the next step, whatever it is. You got to seek it out. You got to force it to happen sometimes, because you can get stuck in these limbo periods. And nobody likes the limbo. Nobody likes it. Go ask the guy from Inception. That shit sucks. You don't want to be trapped in a universe that is not of your making. So make one that suits you better.